Yeah, they just like, we have to. I mean, like, you know, celebrating large moments, and that's maybe market or like, all the no, so that, now, it's. I was like, having with these guys, everyone that got there, you have those, like, the cars, some drive, and whatever. Or they. Yeah, you have to. It was just the. And you might be real, you're like a general structure. Yeah, we have. Yeah, I mean, like. It's like somehow like that same. Slowly. Oh, yes. So it's not like. Yeah, he's doing, he's being told to volunteer, but, oh, it's sorry later.
All right, everyone, I am now going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And I first seek a motion to approve the minutes for this meeting. I see a motion from Angela. I see a second from Abdullah. Is there anyone who objects to moving towards a vote on approving the minutes of our cycle 4 meeting? All right, seeing none, we will put that vote in the Students Assembly channel. A vote to approve the minutes for the cycle 4 meeting.
Freshman senators allowed to vote.
Freshman senators who were recently elected are allowed to vote. Yes, and another announcement and part of that, freshman senators are now counted towards our quorum. So our new quorum number for passing legislation is 29 voting members. All right, and that vote just went out on the teams. Do you approve the cycle 4 minutes? Yes, if you do, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. And I'll let that run for about a minute to 2 here.
Just up here from Indian night, which, yeah, we were. We did ask for people.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, if there's anyone, is there anyone who has not yet voted on the cycle 4 minutes motion? Oh, I'll allow 30 more seconds. All right. If there is no one else who objects to this action, I will move to close this vote. All right. Seeing none, the vote is now closed. And with a vote of 37 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item of our agenda, which I believe would be officer reports. And we will start with an officer report from our student body president, Sadie Williams, and our finance council chair, Camden Baxter. And you both needed 5 minutes, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Perfect.
Fine. You feel kind of tough right now. You're kind of tough.
What? We do look tough.
It's whatever. Okay, everyone. So basically what we're kind of talk to you all about this today, especially we have a little bit of extra time because we don't have a speaker, is fee review. And so I know it's all of your favorite thing ever. And I know everyone is equally passionate about it, as both Camden and I are. But we just wanted to kind of get you all prepped because those elections are coming up next cycle, as are like an amendment and things like that too. So basically from here on out, you'll probably be hearing about fee in every like cycle leading up to February and March whenever we bring it to this body. So fun times. Do you want to kind of like explain a kind of breakdown of it?
Sure. So in many ways, the true power of Student Senate manifests in the fee review process. Essentially, the required campus fee, which is $492.60, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. You pay that every semester, right? And it's a lot of money. And it absolutely is a ton of money. It's over $20 million. And as students, we're one of the institutions in the country that has the privilege of having a very firm hand in determining how that money is spent. Now, our authority certainly isn't absolute, but within reason, we essentially control how that money is spent, and services ranging from transportation to legal services for students to Watkins Health Services all originate from the student fee. Those are student funded, and those student funds are appropriated by students. That is us. So the Fee Review Council is comprised of elected representatives from each council, as well as a few others, and we can talk about that later, that essentially spend 35 hours in what is effectively boot camp sometime in February, hanging out with each other, listening to fee presentations, and ultimately making decisions on what students want to support with their money and what they don't.
Yeah. And so as Camden said, there's a lot of hours that go into this, but there are elected representatives from each of the councils, and plus some people from outside of the councils as well. And so it's a really cool opportunity. There's 2 people from social justice, 2 people from rights, and then 4 from finance as it goes. Camden also serves on it as the chair. And then a bunch of exec members serve as ex officio members, minus our graduate student body president, Holly. She gets to vote. So we're all very jealous. Just kidding. But Basically it's a huge group of people who care about students and their representation and their voices at KU. It is a lot of hours, but it goes by pretty quickly. I didn't do it my freshman year, and I'm kind of sad that I'm only going to be repeating it this year and not 4. So I think that if you haven't been involved in finances at Student Senate, don't be dissuaded. We have lots of prep that we do in advance to make sure that you're all on the same page going in. It's really fun. It really is like a little like mini like family by the end of it. You get to know people really well from different councils, from the different branches, if you're legislative or exec. And all in all, it's just like, and it's an experience that will open your eyes to KU and how it functions. Sometimes for the better, and then also it just kind of gives it this honest portrait that a lot of times we're spared as students. So if you're interested in it, you're welcome to reach out to Camden. He is the front runner this year with Fee, as he's the chair. I was lucky enough to serve in Camden's role last year, and so I'm also happy to like answer any questions that you all may have as well. But we just want to be here as resources for each of you. And so even if you don't want to get involved with Fee, if you're like, I'm literally taking 20 credits next semester, I cannot add another hour, but you're just curious, like I'd also love to talk to you about that as well, and other smaller ways that you can get involved or still make your voice heard. We want to make Fee accessible to all of you, and even if that means you can't vote in the committee or you like don't want to run for it, there's still other ways that you can really make an impact through this process. So yeah.
I'll give the closing remarks. So obviously Sadie's my predecessor, and of course those are humongous shoes to fill, and I will be doing my best. So please reach out to either of us if you have questions. I just want to end this by saying, if you want to understand how this university really works, I cannot recommend Fee Review enough. I mean, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes and ensuring things like transit, like the University Daily Kansan, like Willow, suicide prevention. All of those things come directly from Fee. And if you want to have a hand in that and, you know, really actively affect the experience of the average student here at the University of Kansas. In my view, there is, of course, I'm biased, but there's no better way to do that than to serve on the Fee Review Committee. So I hope many of you are interested, and I hope to see a lot of you come February. So we have. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you both. Are there any questions in regards to Fee Review and that process? Oh, there's one from Chris there. Oh, can we get the catch box to Chris here?
Alrighty. I can't really throw that well.
How many positions are filled from each council?
There are 2 from social justice, 2 from rights and affairs, and there are 4 from finance council right now, 2 undergraduates and 2 graduates.
Yeah, that's council.
All right, I need a motion to extend speaker's time. If we do have another, I see a motion from Angela, and then I see a second from Abdullah. What was the motion for? By 5 minutes? Second. All right, any objection to extending speaker's time by 5 minutes? All right, seeing none, Abdullah, you are next. Can we get them a catch box?
Ready? Thank you.
It's a brutal sport.
So I have one question. Is that like the last phase of review before the fee goes to student assembly?
So it's like the I don't know if like last is right. It's the primary one. So like the fee review subcommittee, they listen to like presentations from all the different fee entities, and then they have a bunch of like documents from them. They all fill out these things. They're called simulation files, but just think of it as like a budget. Like it's the simplest way.
Financial models.
Yeah, it's just that. And then we go through it all, and then we take that, consolidate it into a proposal of like which fees should be increased, which should be decreased. Those go to finance council, and then they go to full or students assembly.
Oh, so it's, yeah, okay.
It's like the stage 1 is what I'd say. Yeah.
But by setting the starting point, the discursive center of gravity, Fee Review Committee really has an immense amount of influence over what the final product ends up being.
Yeah.
Does the finance council usually like change what the fee review committee works on?
If there is variation, it's usually pretty small. It may be on a fee or 2 in years past, but the overall package stays pretty consistent. And so, yeah.
Cool, thanks.
All right, any other questions on the floor? Oh, one question back here.
You got it.
Are we gonna vote on those positions in our councils for who's gonna fill those seats?
Yes, the elections, I believe will be next cycle. And I guess we have to mention that there is a companion amendment that Sadie and I will be introducing also next week, tinkering a little bit with the structure of fee, but substantively very little will change.
Yeah.
So yes, those elections will be had next week. It's the same as any other election for any other board would be held within a council. So, CAB or I guess sustainability or the recreation board or anything like that. So you get nominated and if you win, cool, you're on it.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions?
Okay, cool.
All right, thank you both.
Of course, you all should do it. This is peer pressure.
Next to me. All right. So now we'll go on to the next item on our agenda, which is my officer report. So Sam, I'm going to go ahead and hand the chair over to you. I.e. just the gavel. And then can I just go ahead and have 2 minutes for mine? Yeah, I guess I have to read off. Yeah. All right. So to start my officer report here, I am working to reconcile legislation as it gets enacted throughout the semester and get an early start on a fall 22 legislation packet for us this year. This is going to be a document that gets distributed at the end of the semester to all members of the Senate as a marker for the work that we've done together this year as a legislative body. Next, our treasurer Turner Seals brought an idea to me to simplify the process of submitting legislation each cycle. He developed a new form on the Student Senate Rock Chalk Central page that allows people to submit legislation there rather than emailing the chief of staff. You can now see this live on our website under the legislation tracker in the main navigation menu. And it will be implemented over the next 2 cycles with full implementation in the spring as we work to perfect the form to fit the needs of the Student Senate legislation and the guidelines for it. See here, I met with the provost along with Sadie and Holly this last week, as well as the provost team, and discussed university responses and messaging when tragedies occur on campus, both resolutions that were passed this last cycle by the Students' Assembly, and then the finalized amendments made by the administration to the Student Code of Rights and Responsibilities, and an addition of student services and resource page on the Canvas for the wider student body. We emphasize that students need wider campus messaging on the resolution topics to make sure that students in affected communities feel support from their admin, not just sending messages to these communities, but providing messages to the entire campus. And then finally, freshman elections are now concluded and I have notified all candidates of the results. You got a little highlight of that at the beginning of the meeting. I mentioned scheduling an orientation during our last meeting, but to be respectful of everyone's time during the final quarter of this semester, I've redirected our new senators to watch the recorded orientation from this August and attach Student Senate resources. I am going to plan on holding another orientation at the beginning of the spring semester instead when our Senate comes back into session. In the meantime, if anyone needs to schedule a meeting with me to discuss questions, anything, reach out to me at sbbp@ku.edu.
Any questions? All right, cool. Let me move on to mine now.
No, we'll move on to Holly's.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm used to it. Makes more sense to just. I'm joking.
All right. And Holly, are you ready here?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, perfect.
I second the provost meeting. I was there. I'm not going to repeat what Alessia said. The Graduate Student Advisory Board met today, which I chair. We discussed travel funds for graduate students because the system has changed and I guess it's not working too well. So we're looking to find ways to remedy that. I showed them how to use the legislation tracker to read the Student Senate resolutions that just went through. And I spoke to them about the upcoming legislation tonight about the changes in senator seats. The University Senate Executive Committee met with the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences Dean's candidates over the past 2 weeks, and we got together on Monday and we wrote our feedback collectively, which is going back to the search committee. I also privately met with the Director of International Support Services to raise issues pertaining to international students, such as the resources given to Iranian students or lack thereof. And then tomorrow we have our graduate student meet and greet in here from 11 to noon 30. So hopefully that'll be good. And also University Senate meets tomorrow. So Alessia and I will be there along with Angela and Danae and other people to, you know, advocate for students, do our jobs. That's all I have.
All right, any questions for Holly? All right, seeing none, I think you're good. Thank you, Holly. All right, now we'll go ahead and move on to Sam, our Chief of Staff here for a minute and a half here.
Great. So first off, we have the results of our freshman elections. This is a big one. Could I have, is Kevin Barnes here? Kevin? All right. Emma Marie Holsclaw. Cool. Jaden Walker. Kamal Carver. Is Kamal here? Fortunate. Right. And Blake Bailey. Awesome. Congratulations to our new freshman senators. Not note as well. I've just been working on reformatting the Constitution. It's a beast, but I'm going to be adding all the amendments in here pretty shortly. I should have it done by next councils at the very latest, but then we'll have a completely updated Constitution sometime by the end of next week. Finally, just doing staff checkups. I've organized it a lot more now, so I have like a running list for each person, what they're going to be working on, what their goals are for when I meet with them again in 2 weeks, and then just any questions, comments, concerns they might have. So that's all.
Nathaniel doesn't have one. All right, any questions for Sam before we adjourn that one? All right, seeing none, we will now move on to our next officer report, which is our treasurer Turner Seals. Oh, and then thank you very much, Sam.
All right, so for financial wise, the unallocated account sits at around 75,000. So we're still good there. We made our first purchase for the sustainability fund. So the Cans for the Community, it's a student group. Well, it's a nonprofit, but there's a student group on campus that kind of serves its purpose. So Cans for the Community is the nonprofit. The nonprofit works by collecting cans in Lawrence, and then they like donate them to this aluminum plant, so they get money back basically. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but they've raised multiple hundreds of $1,000s since their start. So we gave them $2,000 to get these like industrial bins to help them clean up cans at games and large events. So that's a pretty cool thing. And then not much else. There's not many funding bills this week, but expect some doozies next week. And yeah, other than that, I have the bill to allow food to be purchased that's coming up tonight, but that's it. Any questions for me? Cool.
Thank you, Turner. I mean, if you want to get it there. Okay, yeah, I would just get there. It's that computer right there.
Yeah.
Huh? Well, it should be in the Teams, in the Rights and Affairs Council channel, right? Well, isn't that where it is currently? Or could maybe. All right. And for the next item on our agenda, we will now be moving on to our Rights and Affairs Council Chair, Abdullah El Awad. I think we're going to go ahead and get some stuff set up on the screen for his officer report. So if we could all wait one moment here while we get that set up. And how long do you need, Abdullah?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, perfect. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so big update from Rights and an issue that everybody should pay attention to. We haven't talked about this before. We review something that's called the Code of Student Rights and Responsibilities every 2 years typically. It hasn't been reviewed like since 2018, or it hadn't been reviewed since 2018, and then we reviewed it last semester. and we approved it and then sent it to Student Affairs. And Student Affairs, of course, has the authority to, strike down everything that we change, and that's understood. But the advisor for Student Affairs approved everything that Rights changed. I was like watching some of those recordings for those sessions, even though I wasn't the chair last year. And I got that also from the previous chair that those changes were approved by the advisor who represents Student Affairs. And then when the code came into effect this year, basically like most of the significant changes that changed the university policy that Rights made were taken out without us knowing, or at least without us having a say in how this would be changed. And in addition to that, something happened which hasn't happened before, according to advisors that I've talked to in the meeting that I had on Friday. And if you see this highlighted blue, I'm not sure if that's the entire thing, because I read it in a different document when they added it. So I think they changed some of it later. I'm not very sure. But basically this language here about allocation or distribution of student fees, this is something that Rights did not write. So the university has the authority to take stuff out. They just haven't added stuff to it before. And this time they're adding stuff to the code that we didn't really approve.
Do I have a motion to extend speaker's time? I see a motion from Anthony. I see a second. What was your name again? Kevin. All right. And what was the time? 5 minutes? Second still good? Perfect. Any objection to extending our speaker's time by 5 minutes? Reminder, this requires a 2/3 majority. Seeing none, I will go ahead and extend time by 5 minutes.
Okay. So the biggest significance of this is that when a council reviews something that hasn't been reviewed in 5 years, they change things. They make huge changes, like giving student press rights that they shouldn't be punished arbitrarily, like making protests, giving protesters more rights on campus when they're protesting, so they're not charged of disruption arbitrarily. And these policies, when you make those changes and then they're just completely taken out and students don't have any say in that, that's a big thing. And the other big thing is this new paragraph that went into there and we didn't approve. Now I've been trying to, work with that for a few weeks, and really progress has been slow. So I'm doing the only thing in my authority, which is I'm calling a revision of the code so we can bring those changes back and try to work with the university. But I think more people should be paying attention to this, and we're going to be forming a subcommittee to to make those changes happen. So if anybody wants to get involved in that, just reach out to me, Senate Rights, KU.edu. And if you have any questions about this policy changes, please ask me now. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any questions for our speaker here? I see one question from Chris. Any others thus far? All right. I see a question back here from Angela. All right. So Chris, you can go first.
So do you have a concern with the language that was added, or is your concern just that it was added without Rights' approval?
Biggest concern is the procedure. It's a precedent when you add stuff, because usually they can take stuff out. They can't add stuff, or they didn't add stuff before in previous revisions, and now they're just adding stuff. So that's a precedent. And the other thing is that the university says, I'm not sure about that, but the university says that the chancellor has the authority to change however our fund is allocated, which is understandable. The biggest objection is how this was done. Shouldn't have been done this way.
And next, Angela.
So what conversations have you had with admin about this specifically? And if yes, what justifications have they shared with you about changing the language?
So I did talk to the advisors, and one of them is Katie Treadwell, and she represents like student affairs and the Rights and Affairs Council. Like, she's the person who we have been working with. And their justification basically is that they can take stuff out. It's just their authority. Like, even if she approves something, she says that's okay. It's in the hands of the vice provost of student affairs to take stuff out or do whatever. And this other language here, there specifically this blue language, their justification for this is that they want to protect students. So if we do anything illegal, basically, they would just go and change it before we get sued. That's their justification for this. But for everything else, they just said, oh, we can just do that. So, I mean, that's at least what I got. They didn't provide explanation for everything, specifically like removing student press rights or the disruption in protests. So I haven't gotten anything about that. I'm still trying to communicate with the people who actually took this down from the code. Yep.
All right. And we have another question from Holly.
No question, it's a point of information.
Point of information from Holly.
So we met with the provost on the 24th, last Monday. And we asked the question, and Dr. Durham would be a good person to reach out to because she gave us the answer, which is that if, like, we're students at the end of the day, like, we don't necessarily have like legal understanding of everything that's going on all the time, and they get general counsel to look over it, and stuff has to be removed if it violates laws and rights that the state has given people in some way. And so that's why things were removed, because, and the chancellor does, just give me like 30 seconds.
Point of information.
Okay, I can
So
keep
this
going.
is off of that timer.
And it is true, the chancellor does have final say, like, that's how it works. We get a say in it, but that's how shared governance works. So I don't really like necessarily painting the picture that our advisors were not helpful to us or trying to go behind our backs or not be here for students, because that is very much not the case. And when we bring advisors' names up that work really hard on our campus to like support us as students, which Dr. Treadwell really very much does do, like, these changes, number one, were not made by her, and number two, were made because things were written that were not legal to write. So that's just the point of information that I have.
I think the point of information that I have is that I didn't talk about Katie
Oh,
Treadwell.
well,
taking
hold on
this.
here. Can we get a motion to extend speakers' time? I see a motion from Giuseppa for 2 minutes. Oh, 5 minutes.
Can I add Holly's point of information, like 30 seconds?
Well, I'm still like mid-motion. I'm looking for a second here.
You can have a point of, I'm
Alright.
done, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. All right. So I see a second over here. Is there anyone who objects to extending speaker time? By 5 minutes. All right. Seeing none, speakers' time is extended. And you may offer one quick 30-second point of information.
Okay, so the context to this is that, is this thing on? Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. Is that the chancellor's veto is not a new thing. Like, I don't, if you look in the Kansan, like the multicultural student government, like all the way back in 2014, the chancellor was vetoing student fees. Like, this isn't necessarily an administrative power grab, and I would reject any portrayal that attempts to characterize it as such. This is, fairly standard. It just codifies what was an existing policy in many ways.
I don't think it is one.
All right. So let's just the speaker here.
So about what Camden said, I'm not objecting to the language itself. They do have the authority. It's just how they added the language. The procedure of adding this is not right. And about the advisors don't really have any authority over approving the code. So I never actually said anything bad about the advisors. It's that really the university did not approve what Rights worked on for a whole year. The advisors can advise, but they can't approve this. Even if they say this is okay, the university can still take it out.
Is it a question or a point of
I'm
information,
sorry, not a
Holly?
point of information. I hate
Alrighty.
being that person, but technically Dr. Durham is an advisor and she does.
Not rights.
No, okay, but like when we're talking about the codes, like it goes to her before it goes to the chancellor. So when I was bringing up about like what Dr. Durham said in our provost meeting, like she is very like she's been doing this for 10 years. And so if something is not legal, it's just not legal. And she does get the chance to approve that or remove wording or change wording to make sure it like does the same thing, but in a legal way.
I don't think like anything like is being like discussed in terms of like removal of wording. I believe it's like the addition of wording.
Yeah, but I think
Correct,
some
or-
kind like what exactly was it that Dr. Durham said? She said something about it to us.
In regards to the language,
Yeah.
I believe Sadie, were you about to make that point, or
Yeah, can you? Because
in regards to the language, how it's like codifying existing?
Yeah, I can make that point. Is this coming through? Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. So basically in our conversations, it was like this is a practice that has been there for a while and it's kind of common with I don't know. Like basically the thing is like with the fee, we at the end of the day, it's a recommendation that we pass and things. And so it's a pretty hefty one. Like it's one that the administration and the Board of Regents value like heavily. So it's not like it's just like oh, we suggest it, but it has never been like law. And so this is kind of just writing out that process. So it was described to us to like prevent like any contention in the future and things like that. But I've talked to people from Senate like a while ago, and it's always been like this as far as like we've known.
Yeah.
Like even in like 2000. And so it's just kind of written down. And so yeah, it's kind of just like the written explanation of what already happens behind the scenes. It's just like very forward facing now.
Yeah.
Does that help?
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. Abdullah, do you have anything else?
Yes, I totally agree that the university should have authority to change this. But when most of the substantial changes the council has done over a year and the code hasn't been revised like since 2018, that was like the first revision. And then most of those substantial changes are just removed completely. That's just a problem. It's like removing the Senate package completely and then writing a new one. Then like, what did you do for a whole year? What did those senators just vote on for a whole year? It's completely eradicated. Just an example of how that feels.
All right, do we have any other questions for our speaker? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Abdullah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and, oh, there's a motion over here. Oh, yeah, quite all right. Camden, you forgot to mention something about fee, didn't you?
Yeah, I screwed up. I apologize. On a much lighter note, can I just, is like 30 seconds max.
I'll allow it.
Okay, so I'm doing the New York Times thing, right? We passed the money, we bought the New York Times, and you're probably wondering, Camden, why is there no New York Times invite showing up in my inbox? And the answer is that the University of Kansas, I love it to death, but dear God, the bureaucracy is a lot sometimes. And that's not an offense or whatever, but there's a lot of hurdles that this has to clear in order for that to go through. And we have meetings scheduled. It's all in the works. I apologize if it's taking longer than most of you would like, but I promise work is being done behind the scenes. We did not just spend your money and abscond with it. So stay tuned, folks.
All right, thank you for that. Yeah, here's hoping that contract has some speedy approval. With that, we will now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Do I see a motion to approve the consent agenda? Huh?
Suspend the limit on use of funding for food.
For food?
Because it has the pizza.
Oh, but I believe, isn't it a $500 limit now?
Oh, it's
Still 100.
Oh, still 100?
Yeah, that shouldn't be on the consent agenda.
Motion unanimous consent.
Yeah,
Can I ask for that?
Motion to suspend the rules or you can object to an item on the consent agenda and it rolls onto the regular agenda.
I think if we suspend the rules first, we can pass it through consent.
Okay. All right. Do I see a motion to suspend the rules to allow a bill to fund the Muslim Student Association's food? All right. I see a motion from Chris. I see a second from Evan. All right. And with that, do we have any objection to the suspension of these rules? All right, seeing no objection, the rules are suspended to allow this item to be remaining on the consent agenda. Do I see a motion to pass the consent agenda? All right, motion from Holly. Do I see a second? Second from Austin. All right. And are there any objections to now moving towards a vote on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we will now move towards a vote. All right, that vote is now in the channel. So do you approve the cycle 5 consent agenda? Yes, no, or abstain? All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this matter that would like to do so? And has the ability to do so? All right, I just saw another vote roll in, so I'm gonna give another 30 seconds, but then we'll look to close the vote. All right. Is there anyone else here who has not yet voted on this matter that wishes to do so? All right, seeing no objections, I'm gonna move to close this vote. All right. And with a vote of 39 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. What was your question? I can't hear you, sir. 40? Oh, yes, 40, counting Abdullah's vocal vote. All right, and now we will go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda, which will be, Bill 2023-22, a bill to reformat the Student Senate. And that'll be presented by our Internal Affairs Director, Nathaniel Garcia. And Angela, are you also presenting on this legislation, or?
You can say Angela if you don't want to.
All right, and how many minutes do you need?
Kind of like 3. I'll take
3. All right, you now have 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay. Am I coming through the thing?
Yeah, can we go ahead and quiet down in the chamber here? Oh, also Holly?
Like the bill's not up on the screen.
Oh yeah, that might be helpful if you could shift it to the bill.
Okay. This one?
Yeah,
No, this is the one.
or, oh, no.
This one? Yes, there it is. Okay. Yeah, so basically after Big 12, we did a lot of, I guess you could say like brainstorming, soul searching. And just like kind of taking in the ideas from all of our peer institutions within the Big 12. And one thing we noticed is that the KU Student Senate is the largest student senate out of the Big 12. We had like most student senates have around like 50, 60 members, while ours is like around max in like the hundreds at this point, due to just like changes in representation and everything. So the idea was that we are going to cut down on the numbers of the student senate now to 70, and then just completely reformat it to a system that is honestly very similar to a lot of our peer institutions, where it is now based off of like class itself. So like, you know, everyone's a freshman, a sophomore, junior, senior, whatever. So we're going to have 4 districts, well, 5 actually, sorry, for each of those groups from freshman to grad. And then we're going to have an at-large district as well that anyone can run for, regardless of class or whatever. And then we also have made changes to the community senators list, where a lot of them have been cut mainly because they've never sent us representation, or some of these groups don't even exist anymore and they've just kind of been holdovers from the SSRR. And then I've also shifted our living group senators into community senators officially. And then, yeah, that's about it. The only other, I guess, big changes would be our associate senators and our holdover senators who are getting cut from this as well. But I guess also as well to all of our senators currently here, no one will lose their seats if this passes. As a precaution, obviously, I don't want any of you people who have, you know, been showing up and actually participating to lose your seats. So there will be no new elections. There won't be anything. This will take effect and on the next regular election coming up in spring. Yeah, I guess that's about it.
Is that it? All right, any questions? All right, I see a question from Abdullah, question from Anthony. Then I cannot see the person in the back there. Oh, perfect. Emma? Yes. All right, so you can go ahead and go first, Abdullah. Yeah, can we get a catch box to Abdullah or a microphone? Not picky.
So I saw that you mentioned that the groups that you removed are because, you know, they didn't set senators, right?
Yeah.
So for the scholarship halls, I think they do have an ASHC senator.
Because then we would have double representation for Skull Halls within community centers. So I thought if we're going to be moving Skull Halls into community centers, why give them 2? I think that seems unfair.
I have a point of info about that, specifically about this.
A point of info on like the bill itself?
On the scholarship halls.
Okay, yes.
So I think it was intended that scholarship halls would have double representation. And there was a bill last year that specified why we did that and why we doubled the representation. And it's because there are not so many student housing organizations that are active right now. I think the ASHC's one is the only one that's active on campus, and that's why it has double representation. So I don't think it's really like.
Which bill are you referring to? The
one that
Constitution
Wesley
or
wrote.
the Constitution?
Yeah, when he doubled the representation for the Scott halls.
Okay.
So there's an ASHC senator, and there is a senator that's elected from the Scott halls at large. So why are we removing that now if they already filled their seats? It's just not justifiable.
Okay, well, that's an opinion, not a point of information. So if we can keep that light there.
Okay.
All right, and I have
Should I respond to that or?
Well, you can. I have a time limit hit, so
Okay.
if I could get time
No,
extension.
No,
Extension 10 minutes, and I see a second from Trey. All right, anyone who objects to extending time by 10 minutes? Seeing none, time is extended by 10 minutes. And you can go ahead and respond to that.
okay. I mean, I think it is unfair if Skull Halls are the only group on campus that is allowed 2 seats out of this other groups that are getting 1 seat comparatively, and we're giving them 1 seat right now. So I think it's fair in the system now.
All right, and then I believe the next question over here, it was Anthony. And then do you also have a question, Camden? I'll get you down on the list. Yes.
Okay, so first, from what I understand, you said 70, it goes down to 70.
Yeah, we'll be hitting 70.
But from my count, it goes to 60, 15 community student senators, 10 from each class, and then 5 grad students. which would be 60, which would drop the total amount of Senate seats by 45%. Was there a reason to drop student Senate numbers or student Senate seats by this much, this fast?
As I said, when I presented the bill, most of our peer institutions have much smaller numbers in their Senate. We clearly are nowhere near even 50% capacity with our numbers at the moment. We're hitting usually around like 30, 40 people showing up. It makes no sense to have this gigantic number of senators when we don't even have enough people to fill the Senate seats.
All right, next on the list is Emma. If we can get a catch box there. Thank you, Camden.
Okay, so you said in your speech that no one would be losing seats, but like as the ASHC like senator, I'd definitely be losing my seat. So like how exactly would that work? Since like I am the ASHC senator and he is the like scholarship hall senator, and we technically like represent two different things within the scholarship hall community.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So to further expand on that, you won't be losing your seat because there's a clause in here that all current senators will retain their seats, regardless of what happens to their seats, like officially. So like technically, yes, your seat will disappear officially, but you as a senator will retain your seat.
Follow up?
I don't think we can have a follow-up. I can come back to you and re-add you to the list. And then Camden, you're next.
We're all good. Okay, cool. Nathaniel, I had a question about, sorry. Yeah, the rationale behind which student organizations you eliminated community seats for and which that you didn't. So like, for example, why did you keep the UBC, but you got rid of the Student Veterans of America? Like, what was the rationale?
Mainly because no one showed up from these organizations. Like obviously UBC fought for their Senate seat for almost what, like 3-4 cycles. So it's like they're very committed in trying to retain their Senate membership. So obviously I wanted to keep them. But like Student Veterans of America, where is the Student Veterans of America senator?
Got it. I was just curious.
Oh yeah, no.
That's cool.
All right, Chris.
May I be permitted to ask 2 questions?
Let's see, currently, Nicole, you also want to be added to the question list. All right, and then Kevin wants to be added. Yeah, I would only do it if people consent to it at this point here.
All right, I can do
So
that.
would you consent to it, Emma?
I'll just do one question.
Just one question? All right, thank you.
Okay, so with the class constituent groups, you have 10 from each class, except for only 5 from the graduate students. What is your reasoning to have half the number of graduate students compared to each of the undergraduate classes?
If you would like to, Holly, I have the exact same idea, but this was done in cooperation with Holly, the grad president.
So like the change in seats is proportional. And so it's a proportional percentage, 5 plus it adds in my position as a voting member. So we would have 6 in proportion, which is 10%, like close to a bit under 10%. It's around 9% of the total 70, which is exactly what it is now. So proportionally, there's literally no issue with it. And I gave my consent to Nathaniel when he did this, because from the Big 12, it makes no sense. We're never filling our seats. We haven't done so for years. It's my 3rd year in this position. We've never had a full student senate. Why not make it where we have more engagement and less issues with quorum? You know, like it just makes sense.
Anything else to add before I go to the next question?
Oh, I guess.
And Abdullah, you had quick point of information. Please do make it brief. We've had a ton of points of information that have gone on for about a minute here.
If we
So
don't fill a seat, I don't think it affects quorum at all. And correct me if I'm wrong.
if we don't fill a seat,
Yes, I don't think it will affect our quorum.
oh yeah, no, unfilled seats don't affect quorum, filled seats do.
Yes, that was just all I needed to say.
All right,
Uh,
and then if you can
yeah.
continue your response.
I guess also in response to that, I would like to say that the entire executive staff did sponsor this bill. So this is coming from the executive itself. We're all united behind this.
Right, and then next on the list, I have Nicole, Kevin, and then Emma. Let's see, yeah. Let's see a hand over here. Oh, I haven't seen it. Oh, Jeffrey, perfect. I will get you down.
Last week in Social Justice Council, our chair made, well, we voted on an amendment to add back in, I think it was like 5 student, organizations. And we did that with the idea that someone would reach out to them because basically no one had been notified that they had these seats because like back, I think it was in our first cycle meeting, that all these organizations hadn't been added in and no one had really notified them that they had these seats. So I was wondering if anyone had been in touch with these organizations to let them know that they have these seats, and if not, then like we can, do we need to like remove them if they're not going to be interested in filling them?
Oh, yeah, thanks for asking that question, actually, Nicole, because I completely forgot that. I did, after social justice, emailed every single organization in blue about their Senate seat, asking them to either, send us a representative, or even if they don't want their Senate seat, to just say, hey, we don't want this. And I got no responses from any of these organizations at all. So, yeah, I guess.
Barring the Black Student Union, correct? Barring the Black Student
No,
Union, you have
obviously,
the
yes,
representative.
barring the Black Student Union.
Yes.
But, well, I didn't email them because our senator's over there.
All right, and then next here I have Kevin.
Hi, I just had a quick question about like how this change would affect like student interest in Student Senate, because I know like we're making it a little bit more difficult, or at least I'm perceiving it to be so, for people to like get into Student Senate, because it's like, would this cause interested parties to lose the opportunity to join due to lack of available seats? Because I know at the beginning of like cycle 2, we had someone who was interested and they wanted to run for College of Liberal Arts, but those were taken, so we just moved them into off-campus senators. Can you speak more on that?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I guess on your first point about making it more difficult, this doesn't change the election process or anything in any way. It just reduces seat numbers. And we've been seeing a decline in involvement with Student Senate for about maybe 4 or 5 years now. So I don't really think it'll be a struggle that there will be just people who will want to come in and then there's just not enough seats for them. There's about 60 seats. I don't think it'll be 60, 70 seats. I don't think we're going to really run up against like that hard limit, honestly. And then I'm sorry, what was the rest of your question?
That was pretty much it. I was just like,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, also that, to speak on that as well, that is the point of the at-large district as well. That it's like, well, if there's just too many freshmen, so go for the at-large district, which also, to speak on that issue, freshmen originally only, I think, have 5 seats right now. So their seat number is being doubled, which would help, especially since some freshmen were not able to get in on recent freshman elections.
All right, next question I have is from Jeffrey. And then last one from Emma. Oh, yes. If you could turn it on, it's the red button on the bottom.
Me?
Oh,
there it is.
I guess my question was related to the other Greek councils that were added onto there. There's no NPHC council, which is the National Greek Council for the Black fraternities and sororities on campus. And so I just feel like since there already is one for the Multicultural Greek Council and the other ones, why isn't there one for NPHC?
Sadie could speak on that. That's her bill originally.
Okay.
Yeah, National Panhellenic.
National.
Maybe it just wasn't showing up on.
Oh, no, you're
the
good.
files.
It should be there.
Okay.
I would, yeah.
All right, into that. All right, and then finally, Emma.
Okay, sorry, it's gonna sound like I'm going backwards because I asked questions earlier, but so I guess I'm not understanding, sorry.
I'll allow you to ask your question and then a response, and then we'll ask if more time is needed then.
Okay, so like ASHC being the only housing council like in operation itself is a different entity than the like scholarship hall as a whole. So why would those not be deserving of 2 different seats?
I mean, I feel because they're both in a way representing the same thing, if I'm not mistaken, that the AHC is meant to represent all the Skull Halls, but then a Skull Hall senator would be doing the exact same thing, representing all the Skull Halls. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry.
Sorry, feel free to offer a point of information if you'd like.
Okay, so ASHC itself is the presidents and representatives from each hall. And so it's only a limited amount of people that would be given the opportunity to be an ASHC like council member, as opposed to the scholarship halls themselves. It could be anyone who lives in any of the 12 scholarship halls can apply to be that senator. So they're not, I mean, they are affiliated, but it's different bodies of students that you'd be polling from. And that's where there's a separation there.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, I think I understand what
Okay.
you mean. I mean, I guess if we would like to make an amendment to re-add the.
All right,
agency- Oh, should we?
yeah, I
go to amendments?
need a motion to extend speaker's time if we're
Okay.
gonna continue onward. By 10 minutes, okay. All right, 5. Motion to extend by 5, second from Anthony. All right, any objections to extending speaker time by 5 minutes? Seeing none, we will go ahead and extend speaker
Okay.
time.
Should I finish with my point then?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so if we want to add an amendment to re-add the HCC, I would be fine with that, especially since I need to make an amendment to this as well, since we actually added a group back that actually does not exist anymore, so we gotta re-remove them.
All right, and would that be the end there? Or
yeah.
would you motion to make an
Oh,
amendment?
actually, yeah, I'll motion to make my amendment, so we'll just replace the International Student Association with the all council,
All right, is there a second for that amendment? All right, I see a second from Josefa. And is there any objection to an amendment to change, you said it was the International Student Association?
yeah,
To the All Scholarship Hall Council?
Yeah.
Holly?
I'm really not good. I guess it's not an objection, Nathaniel, so don't take it the wrong way, but none of these student groups are international facing except ISA, and I know it doesn't necessarily need to be ISA. I mean, I used to be the president of it quite a few years ago, but like we should have an international student group on there to represent us because we are such a small group. Like in this room, there's like 4 of us, so.
yeah, but I mean, the main issue is they just don't exist anymore. I looked on Rock Chalk Central, they weren't there.
International Student Association does exist. They probably just haven't done their shit on Rock Chalk Central.
Okay, so, I mean, if we can then get into contact,
Okay.
so I'll change my amendment to just then add the skull holes back in.
I think we have another, is it a point of information from Abdullah? Oh, a negative speech. All right, I'll get that. All right, and so as like it's currently stated, so you're just proposing now to add back
Yeah,
ASHC
just
on
add
J.
see.
All right, so an amendment to add back AHSC on line J there. Is there a second? All right, I think I see a second from Josefa back there. Perfect. All right, and does there anyone who objects to an amendment to add ASHC back onto this legislation? You object? All right, then we will go ahead and move to a formal vote on this matter. And, oh, do you want me to do it, Sam, so I can get it up in the assembly? Perfect. Yeah, our impromptu secretary over here.
Yeah, sorry about that, Sam. You're gonna have to be secretary for a while.
No, I actually haven't done this since last year. It's kind of crazy. All right, so the way that this vote will read is, do you approve the amendment to add ASHC back to SB 2023-22? Vote yes to add them back, vote no to keep them off of this current amendment, and then abstain to stay out of the discussion. A reminder that this will require a simple majority to pass. All right, so I'll go ahead and let that run here now. It requires a simple majority. The amendment itself will require 2/3 to pass in finality, but a simple majority to amend the amendment.
That's true. That's bad. I mean, I'm gonna emphasize. Oh, Fabiana. The director or the chair,
The social, or the director of social justice.
That's Fabiana. Yeah, Fabiana.
All right, I've not seen it move for a bit here. Is there anyone who would like to vote on this matter who has not yet done so and has the ability to do so? All right, I'm hearing no objections to this, and so I'm going to go ahead and move to close this vote. Or, oh, I just saw two more roll in, and so we will continue this for another 30 seconds and then look to close the vote.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who has not yet voted? Going once, going twice? This vote is now closed. All right. If I can get some quiet in the chamber here. So with a vote of 25 in the affirmative, 15 in the negative, and 3 abstentions, this motion clearly passes and the bill is amended. All right. And so now I'll go ahead and add that on to the legislation here. And unstrike Fall Skull Hall Council. All right, so they have now been amended back into the final version of the document. And I'll just put them in green just to make that clear. All right, and I believe that's the end of speakers' time. So if you want to go ahead and come down.
I have like 2 other bills coming up, so I was just gonna.
Oh, well, there's a negative speech on the floor
Oh,
unless someone motions to vote right now. So, oh, Holly, do I see a motion to vote? All right, and do I see a second? I see a second from Kevin. All right, and is there anyone who objects to moving towards a vote on this legislation? I see an objection from Chris. All right, so with those objections in mind, do you still hold your motion, Holly? All right, and so we will now move to a vote on whether or not we vote. So, yeah, pretty comic. Yeah.
She's already going.
Well, you're done with your time, so you can actually retake your role as internal affairs director. Hmm? Oh, true. Okay. All right, and the poll has now been released in the channel here. Do you approve moving to a vote on SB 23-22? Yes, if you approve to move to a vote. No, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion.
Every week. You know, I.
All right, has everyone voted? All right, has everyone voted that has the ability to do so on this measure? All right, seeing no objections, I will move to close this vote. And with a vote of 31 in the affirmative, 9 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion passes. And we will be moving towards a vote on this legislation. And so that vote will now go into the chat here. Yeah, on the legislation as amended. All right, so that vote is now in the chat. Do you approve SB 23-22? Yes, if you approve, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. A reminder that since this is an amendment, it does require a 2/3 majority to pass. The constitutional amendment, yeah. All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this legislation that wishes to do so? Oh, you still haven't voted? Okay, I'll allow 1 more minute to vote, but please, if senators could get their votes in. Anyone else who has not yet voted on this matter that wishes to do so? All right, going once, going twice, I will be closing this vote now. All right, and let me go ahead and calculate the results out here. Yeah. All right, and so with a vote of 21 in the affirmative, 15 in the negative, and 1 abstention, this motion clearly fails as it does not meet the 2/3 threshold to pass a constitution amendment. All right. And so now we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. That will be Senate Bill 23-23, a bill to give Studex power to remove council exec members. All right, and that will also be you, Nathaniel.
Yeah.
How much time do you need for this legislation?
Should be short. It's gonna be like 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right, and if we could quiet down the chamber here so we can listen to our presenter. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so basically, this is just to add some accountability to our council executive members where there originally was. Oh,
yes.
You're just. Yeah, so this is to add accountability to our council executive members where there originally was none. Our executive staff already has accountability in the form of an impeachment, but our council exec does not, oddly enough. It was kind of removed in the rewrite. So the title of this bill is honestly very deceptive. Studex has no role in this process at all. Basically, this was ripped straight from the old SSRR, where we're going to add in a vote of no confidence and then the ability of, actually, sorry, Studex does play a slight role in this. Then there's another one where Studex can recommend to the assembly itself to take a 2/3 vote to remove the council executive member, but that's about the only role Studex would ever play in this. And yeah, that's about it. It works for all of council exec, the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. And then, yeah, that's everything.
All right, any questions? Question from Camden? Yeah, can we get a catch box, mic, etc.?
Good try.
All right, and you can go ahead.
Yeah, hi Nathaniel. Substantively, what does this change about the existing process? Like if a chair, if it as it currently stands, are committees the only bodies empowered to remove their respective officers?
Committees are not actually. Oddly enough, we had this situation in social justice during the beginning of the year where their vice chair just disappeared, never showed up. So what we had to kind of do was play it by ear, and eventually we just kind of.
Sorry, can we cut down on like the side talk in their chamber so we can hear our speaker? You can continue.
Sorry. Yeah, so we kind of just decided to say to social justice to re-elect and hold a new election for a new vice chair, but there is no process for that in the Constitution. We were kind of just going as we went.
I do need a motion to extend speaker's time. By 5 minutes, second from Nicole. All right, any objection to extending time by 5 minutes? All right, seeing none, that motion passes. Camden, you have your question. Does anyone else have questions before I start this again? Question from Chris. Perfect. All right, that seems to be it. Camden, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm not trying to drag this out. I apologize. So my question for you is, if the problem with social justice wasn't that Studex couldn't remove a member who wasn't, pulling their weight, it was that the council themselves couldn't make that decision, then why is the solution to empower Studex to make a recommendation to the Students' Assembly when you could instead just let the councils remove problematic members?
We thought it best, well, since this was originally an SSR, probably was some reason why they had it both ways, but we thought it was best to keep in the both ways anyway, since both are very democratic, since it's a 2/3 vote in either the council itself or the full assembly. And we thought, what if there could be situations that arise where, especially with our low numbers of involvement in councils, that councils could only be controlled by like 3-4 people. And that could be we don't want that to happen, where they just are perpetuating, I guess you could say, incompetence or something within the council.
Next, we have Chris, and then I have Abdullah and Nicole. A negative speech. All right, I'll get you down for that. And Nicole, you had a question? Point of information. Okay, you can go ahead and state your point of information briefly, and then we'll get to Chris's question here. Do we have a catch box here? Oh. The good thing these boxes are soft. All right.
Another issue that we had.
Thank you.
Another issue that we had in Social Justice Council, it only happened at one meeting, but we did not meet quorum, and so we weren't able to vote one week. So, and then we went, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 cycles without a vice chair. So that would be a specific situation where we did need like Studex to be able to be like, hey, we need to like remove this person so that we could get someone in place, because it was just myself and our chair doing everything. So.
All right, thank you for that, Nicole. And now we'll go ahead and move on to Chris. The bad luck continues with this catch.
Still a much better throw than I managed. 2 questions, or may I?
Currently, there's no one else in the question order, so yes.
Committee refers to the councils, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and in the last part, the last paragraph, committee officers shall refer to the committee chair, vice chair, secretary. Why aren't associate senators on that?
Well, the idea was that associate senators would not exist when this bill passed. So while they now do exist, we will have to amend that.
Okay.
I will say, as a point of information, associate senators aren't technically part of a council's executive leadership. They're supposed to be elected to represent that council, but are not like a member of council leadership.
I guess, can I also respond to that?
Huh?
Can I respond to that as well?
Oh, I guess you can't. That was the point of information.
Yeah, I mean, because I wanted to add to it.
Okay.
I guess also, yeah, we can remove senators anyway through a different process. So I mean, I guess if you think about it, we could also just not add associate senators anyway, but there is a way to remove any senator, which I've been talking at length about with attendance.
Sorry, Chris, did you have a question as well after I made that point, or? Huh?
Those were the 2 questions.
Oh, perfect. All right, any other questions?
Negative speeches go like after questions, or how does that?
Negative speeches go after speaker's time has elapsed. So as soon as Nathaniel is not speaking or answering questions, then we would move to the next speaker. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Oh, Holly, do you have a motion? All right, all right, and of course, an rejection, as there is a speech on the floor. All right, and so, well, Holly, was your motion seconded? I don't see it. Oh, I see a second over here from Alex. And so now we will go ahead and move towards a vote with an objection on the floor. All right, and so the poll has now been posted onto the Students Assembly channel. Do you approve moving to a vote on this legislation? Yes, if you approve moving to a vote, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. A reminder that it requires a simple majority vote to move to a vote on legislation.
Sergeant at Arms takes on all of the riders with the U.S. House of Representatives down. And Kevin McCarthy out there. Batting practice.
All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this matter? I'm still seeing votes roll in, so I'm gonna go ahead and allow 30 seconds. But let's please close out voting momentarily. Is there anyone else who would like to vote on this matter who has not yet done so? All right, have you not yet voted, Abdullah, or? The point of information? Okay, regarding like motions? Huh? All right. I suppose. But we're gonna go ahead and close this vote first. I'm gonna close the vote first before you make your point of information. All right, and so with a vote of 30 in the affirmative, 9 in the negative, and 1 abstention, this motion clearly passes. All right, and then you had a point of information?
Yeah, I think that like in this body, I think that we should have different points of views. I think that we should allow.
Wait, is this a point of information or a speech?
It's about our duties. I'll get to it. I think that we should not just motion to vote on things very quickly because we have a duty.
That is an opinion. I'm sorry. But for a point of order, we need like information.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that we have a duty as a body to like to discuss pieces of legislation very thoroughly before we just approve them. That's all that I wanted to say.
All right, thank you. And anyone else do we have now? All right, and so now it's been approved here. We will now move towards a vote on this legislation. All right. That poll has now been posted to the chat. If we can cut down on the side conversation, please. That poll has now been posted to the chat. Do you approve SB 23-23? Yes, if you approve the legislation. No, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. Reminder that since this is a constitutional amendment, it requires 2/3 vote to pass. All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this legislation that wishes to do so? I'm still seeing votes roll in. If we could get those last 7 votes that we usually have voting made shortly, that would be amazing. All right, is there anyone else who has not yet voted on this legislation that has the ability to do so? Seeing no objections, I'm going to move to close this vote. And with a vote of 28 in the affirmative, 6 in the negative, and 2 abstentions, this bill clearly passes. All right. And so now we will go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a bill to, so sorry, forgot this part here. Perfect. All right, a bill to amend Student Senate's constitution to give new job description and role to the policy director to become the outreach director. And can you go ahead and change it to the legislation at hand? And will 2 minutes suffice?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, this is the last time you're gonna have to hear.
Can we cut down on the side conversation, please? Thank you.
All right, well, this is the last time you're gonna have to hear from me, so good for everybody. But no, this is probably our least controversial bill tonight. So our policy director, Angela Davis, had a lot of her job description basically stripped from her during successive rewrites of the Constitution and changes. So at the moment, she has really no job. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to change her position officially to the outreach director and give her a new job of trying to, get the new Student Senate out there and make sure people know we exist and know what we do for students. So yeah, and this is kind of just the formal change to that with a lot of what was left of the policy director being removed and new stuff for the outreach director being put in. And I'll also be putting another bill in next cycle to further expand upon this role.
All right, any questions for Nathaniel in regards to this ledge? I see a question from Chris. Do we have a mic somewhere? Both of our catch boxes ended up over here. Oh. All right. Okay, can someone throw a catch box? Oh, Abdullah has one.
You ready?
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right, go ahead and ask your question.
You said that most of the changes you're proposing here to the policy now outreach directors roles are or were in effect but not formal. Are you aware of any changes in this bill that aren't already in practice?
I guess, could you please clarify that for me then? I'm not really sure what you mean.
So you said that because of changes to the Student Senate Constitution over time, a lot of the things that you're taking out of the outreach directors' roles were already things they weren't doing, so they were already in practice.
You want to answer that, Angela?
So in summary, I have been doing basically everything that this says. This bill is to make paper match reality. That's all it is.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Oh, motion to vote from Austin. Do I see a second? I see a second from Vander back there. All right, and is there anyone who objects to moving towards a vote on this legislation? All right, seeing none, that vote will now be posted in the channel. Yes. Thank you very much, Nathaniel. This is honestly just a reminder of how absolutely critical the role of a secretary is in a committee, especially one as big as this. All right, can you move to create the vote? And then do you approve SB 2023-24? Yes. All right, that legislation has now been posted to the Students Assembly channel. Do you approve SB 23-24? Yes, if you approve this amendment, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. Once again, like all constitutional amendments, this requires 2/3 majority to pass.
Where does it say that stop anyone before? Promoted to internal affairs.
All right, is there anyone who's not yet voted on this legislation that has the ability to do so? All right, seeing none, I am going to close this vote. Did one person really just come in here? All right. Moment of thought there. All right, so I'll allow 30 more seconds before I close this vote, just to make sure everyone who's a voting member gets to vote.
Same still very good. Sam is now internal affairs director.
Any objection to closing this vote? Seeing none, this vote is now closed. All right. If we can cut down on the side conversation, please. All right, and with a vote of 39 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, and so now we'll go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Student Senate Bill 2023-27. And Turner, I believe that's your legislation? Yes. And that will be a bill to amend the Student Senate Constitution funding guidelines. Whenever you're ready, Turner. And if you could go ahead and project your bill.
Which one is it?
27.
Am I good?
All right.
All right.
Can we please quiet the room for our speaker? Thank you. All right, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay, cool. So basically all this does is it removes the $100 limit right here. That is currently being applied towards groups in their food purchases. As you guys saw earlier, we had to disband the rules to fund the MSA just to get them some pizzas. I think that's pretty stupid, honestly. So there's no limit on how much you can spend for food. I bet groups will spend probably a few $100 to get pizzas for their event. That's it.
All right.
Any questions?
Any questions or a motion to vote? Motion to vote from Abdullah, second from Bander. All right, and with that, are there any objections to moving towards a vote on this legislation? All right, seeing none, we will move towards a vote.
Thank you all for your support.
It is enduring. And it's 23-27. All right, and that vote is now up. Do you agree with Senate Bill 23-27? Yes, if you support this amendment, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. And I'll allow a minute and a half for voting. Hopefully it takes that long. All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this legislation that wishes to do so and has the ability to do so? Seeing no objections, I will close this vote. All right, and with a vote of, if we can cut down the side conversation, please. Thank you. All right, and with a vote of 39 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. All right, and now we have the next item on our agenda, which is Senate Bill 2023-28, also a bill to amend the Student Senate Constitution Funding Guidelines, presented by Zachariah. This is your bill. It's number 28, if you find it there. It's yeah.
I found
All right,
it.
whenever you're ready.
Yes, yeah. All right.
Can we listen to our presenter, please? Thank you.
All right, guys. So this bill, so I've been in charge and working a lot with the DEI fund recently. And so what this bill does is it increases the minimum amount payable that we can pay in full as a DEI fund committee from $1,000 to $1,500. And the reason behind that is because currently we have a ton of money in the DEI fund committee, and that'd be awesome if it was getting utilized, but frankly, for the most part, we haven't been able to like make a consistent dent in it as sort of in sort of where we in terms of where we are in the year. And so we're hoping that sort of this allocation would one increase sort of applications, but also a lot of the groups that have been coming to us have been requesting $1,300, $1,400, like numbers that are in this range. And so I think that instead of doing them the disservice of not being able to fund that entire bill, or in terms of funding their entire request, this allows them to have their entire request filled in full, but also making sure that our funding and our reserve is being utilized appropriately. And again, for students and for really interesting and cool student events. So this is for the most part friendly. It's just a slight adjustment. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, any questions? I have a question from Sam.
So why 1,500? Like, why 1,500 in particular? And
Right.
also, like, do we need a cap even?
So here's the thing. So the reason the cap is there is because in theory, a group could come in and ask for $20,000 and they could get $20,000 if the DEI fund committee felt compelled enough. The reason that there are caps in place is because sort of that $20,000 request doesn't get filled. Again, we obviously like to like assume that the people that are voting on these bills are reasonable and rational and come to same conclusions. But for the most part, the fact that we have a cap allows a certain barrier, but also ensures that student organizations go and receive and look for fundraising sources that are outside of Senate and be proactive in other means that are outside of Senate instead of just coming to us and footing the bill on our end.
All right, do I see any other questions or a motion to vote? All right, motion to vote over here from Austin, and then I'll take a second from Anthony. All right, and is there anyone who objects to moving to a vote on this legislation? Didn't seem so. All right, and so if we can go ahead and get a vote in the channel, Nathaniel. And it'll be for Bill 2023-28. All right, that vote is now up. Do you approve Senate Bill 2023-28? Yes, if you approve this legislation, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. All right. I'm seeing votes roll in still, so I'm going to allow about 30 more seconds for voting, but then we'll look to conclude it. Anyone else who would like to vote on this legislation that has the ability to do so? Seeing none, I will move to close this vote. And with a vote of 36 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this legislation clearly passes. All right, do we have any announcements before we move to adjourn our meeting? Do I see a motion to adjourn? I see a motion from Abdullah. Oh. All right, do you second then, Camden? All right, any objections? We are adjourned.